Welcome everyone. This is Chapter 8 Business Case Studies Applying Analytics to Solve Real Business Problems. In this chapter, we move beyond analytics tool and techniques and focus on how analytics is actually applied in real organizational context. Till now, you have gone through various theoretical aspects of business analytics, and in this chapter, we are going to explore more on applied real business examples where business analytics have been used. Through selected business case studies, we will examine how data-driven decision making helps firms address complex managerial problems, improve their performance, efficiency, and productivity, and gain a competitive advantage. The objective here is not only to understand the analytical methods used but also to appreciate the business context, the decision logics, and the managerial implications of analytics-based solutions. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to interpret real-world analytics applications, connect analytical insights to business decisions, and critically evaluate how analytics supports strategy and operations. I am Dr. Manisha Gupta, Associate Professor in the area of Business Analytics, and I will be guiding you through this chapter. Let's begin. Let us begin by understanding the learning objectives of the chapter. After completion this chapter, you will first be able to understand the practical value of business analytics. Rather than viewing analytics as only set of tools or techniques, we'll focus on how it creates real business value in organizational decision, that is, data-driven decisions. Secondly, you will analyze and learn from real-world case studies. We'll be discussing a couple of case studies to give you a clear picture on business analytics in real-world scenario. This case will help you to see how firms across industries use data to address business challenges and improve their outcomes. Thirdly, you will learn to apply a structured approach to business case analysis. This will include problem definition, data understanding, selection of appropriate analytical method, interpretation of result, and managerial recommendation, which is a step towards how to solve a business analysis case. Fourth, the chapter aims to connect analytical theory with practical business solution. We'll try to bridge the gap between conceptual model discussed earlier in your previous chapters and their application in real business settings. Fifth, you will develop hands-on analytical and problem-solving skill by working through cases that require logical reasoning, data interpretation, and decision justification. Finally, you'll be able to assess and reflect on analytics applications, evaluating not only what works but also the limitations, assumption, and ethical consideration involved in analytical based decision. These objectives will guide our discussion throughout the chapters. Let us now begin with the definition of business analytics. This is just a recap of whatever you have studied in the previous chapters. So we'll be discussing on the definition and also different types of business analytics. So business analytics is about moving beyond raw numbers. It focuses on identifying historical patterns, understanding current trends, and explore future possibilities through structured data exploration. In other words, if we say, analytics helps us convert data into meaningful business understanding. Formally, business analytics can be defined as the practice of iterative and methodological exploration of an organizational data with a strong emphasis on statistical analysis. The term iterative is important here. Analytics is not a one-time activity but a continuous process of refining questions, models, and insights as new data become available. Let us now address the why in today's hyper-competitive business environment, which is very complex and dynamic in nature. managerial decisions can take no longer rely on only intuitions or gut feeling. It would have been in the earlier or in past when the business were not too scaled up, like they were not very big. They were just confined to some region or state. But because of globalization and technological upgradation and the intervention of internet in all fields of businesses, it is very important that business analytics provide a factual and evidence-based foundation for strategic and operation decisions, thereby reducing uncertainty and risk associated with the dynamic business. Finally, in terms of practical value, business analytics transforms raw data into actionable insights. These raw data can be your sales data, these raw data can be your inventory data, logistic operations data. But the data has to be analyzed in such a manner that it gives you some insights, some patterns, some trends. These insights support better resource allocation, process improvements, and performance enhancement, ultimately driving efficiency, profitability, and competitive advantage for an organization. Now, traditionally, if we talk about many business decisions were driven by managerial intuitions and past experiences, and what is often referred to as the gut feeling, as we discussed in the previous slide. While experience remains valuable, it is no longer sufficient in today's complex, fast-changing, and highly competitive business environment. Just giving you a small example of web analytics. Whenever a person who just lands up on an e-commerce website, the data is started being generated at that very moment. Similar to the footfall of any customer to a physical outlet. The moment the person logs in, the moment the person enters its details, starts shopping, every moment the data is being captured. And that is the importance of data in today's business. We are actually witnessing a strategic shift from intuition-based decision to fact-based and data-driven decision making. So data of a customer on the basis of e-commerce signing up, the name, email address, the choices of product, the size that they choose, the color that they prefer. It is all data that is collected. Now that is why the organization, they rely on data, analytical models and empirical evidence to guide strategy, operations and performance management. Business analytics plays a central role in the shift. It provides managers with objective insights derived from data, allow them to evaluate alternatives, quantify risk, and justify strategic choices. At a global level, analytics has become a critical foundation for corporate strategy. Firms use analytics not only to improve efficiency and reduce cost, but also to identify new opportunities, understand customer behavior, sustain in the competitive advantage. In essence, if we talk, business analytics represent the move from decision based on instinct to decision based on evidence. And this evidence is the data that needs to be evaluated with the correct statistical tool. Now, before we begin further, let's first have a recap on the four functional pillars of analytics, as I am sure you would have gone through in your previous chapters. So to understand analytics, it creates value to organization. The four pillars that are very, very important to understand is first a descriptive analytics, which focuses on historical data to answer the question, what has happened? It summarizes past performance using dashboard, reports, and key performance indicators. More organizations begin their analytical journey with this stage, and it is quite true as well. If I give you an example of a retail outlet, the daily sales record, the inventory record is the descriptive statistics of any organization. And based on that, we can easily see that what are the sales trends. So that is just a descriptive analysis of that particular retail outlet in the form of data, because it is what has happened and what is happening. Why it is happening is being answered to diagnostic analytics. The objective is to explain why something happened. Diagnostic analytics isolate key variables and root cause using techniques such as drill down, correlation, and data mining. It moves beyond reporting to explanation. So if the sales are going down, what could have been the possible reason? Whether the advertisement was not made properly, or the employees at the retail outlet were not performing well. So this can be few of the reasons when root cause analysis can be done through diagnostic analysis. The third pillar, very important, it is predictive analytics. Use statistical model and machine learning techniques to answer the question what is likely to happen next. That is more of forecasting. By identifying pattern in historical data, organization can forecast demand, customer behavior, or risk outcomes. The fourth and the most advanced pillar now is the prescriptive analytics. As a business analyst, you are supposed to tell what should we do. So besides having statistical tool knowledge, the business analyst student should also have a sound knowledge of all the domains of business, or you can say the functional areas of business, like marketing, HR, finance, operations, logistics, production, and many more. It employs optimization, simulation, and decision models to recommend action that leads to the best possible outcome. We should not forget that with the help of AI, now prescriptive analysis has been made more easier through expert systems or decision support systems. Together, these four pillars actually provide a structured framework for using data, starting with insights into the past and accumulating the data-driven decision making for the future. Now we begin with the first pillar, the descriptive analytics, and as we have said, just a recap for that what has happened, it focuses on understanding past performance within a specific business context. The core function is historical pattern and trends analysis. At this stage, objective is not explanation or prediction, but just a clear summarization. Few tools that are helpful in descriptive analytics is dashboard, business intelligence report, and high-level data visualization. So overall, if we say the baseline of descriptive analytics is that it provides the dashboard or the summarization of the data. Diagnostic is, as I told you earlier also, it is what happened and why did it happen. This is something that you need to say over here. So core technique used in diagnostic analytics is data mining, correlation, and pattern discovery. So it basically helps the analyst to drill down or roll up on different levels where they can go within the problem and identify the most crucial variable that affects. So for example, it can reveal why a marketing campaign failed, why customer churn have increased, and why operational costs have risen. So these are few of the aspects in diagnostic analytics. We now turn to the third pillar is that prescriptive analytics, which addresses a forward-looking question, what it is likely to happen, and then it can be done with the core function such as forecasting. So the machine can learn through the historical data and project the patterns into the future. For strategic perspective, predictive analytics is widely applied in the areas such as demand forecasting, risk management, and automated lead scoring. For example, a firm can forecast future sale, predict customer churn, or assess the likelihood of the credit default. And we would also be discussing into the different cases in coming up slides. Fourth pillar, very important and most advanced, prescriptive analytics. What should we do? This focus is not just on understanding or predicting outcomes, but on recommending the best possible course of action to achieve specific business goals. The core function of prescriptive analytics involves optimization and simulation. These techniques evaluate multiple decision alternatives while considering constraints, trade-off, and uncertainty in order to generate data-driven recommendations. So from a strategic standpoint, prescriptive analytics create significant value in support applications such as dynamic pricing, logistic and supply chain optimization, and smarter capital allocation. So for few example, if we see, organization can determine optimal pricing level, allocate resource effectively, and design cost-effective distribution network. So this is also termed as concrete actionable decisions that directly improves organizational performance. Now we move from analytic concepts to their practical application through a real business cases. To understand how analytics create value, it is useful to briefly look at how different businesses function, apply the same analytical framework. So in HR analytics, organizations use data to improve workforce outcome. For example, employee attrition model analyzes factors such as tenure, performance rating, compensation, and engagement score to predict who is most likely to leave the organization. This allows the HR managers to design targeted retention strategies rather than reactive hiring. If we talk about the marketing analytics as an example, firms apply customer and campaign data to drive revenue growth. For instance, customer segmentation and response modeling helps identify which customers are more likely to respond to promotion, enabling personalized offers and more effective marketing spends. This can also be a part of where customer life value can be calculated. The market size, the market basket analysis can be taken into consideration, and customer churn analysis can be done. In financial analytics, if we see in financial functional area, data is used to manage risk and profitability. Like credit scoring model in bank, it evaluates the income, the repayment history, and transaction behavior to assess default risk, while forecasting models help predict cash flow and optimize capital allocation. So if we call about the defaulters for loan payment can also be calculated. The fraud detection is also part of financial business analytics. Across all these functions, the underlying logic remains the same. You define the problem, you analyze the relevant data, you interpret the insights and recommend actions. The business case we examine next demonstrate how this analytical approach translates into real managerial decisions. So let's start a couple of cases from the real business world. So the very first case, in this case, which is data-driven collaboration, examines how Microsoft uses descriptive analytics to transform its internal operations. The focus here is not on advanced algorithm, but how systematic analysis of everyday organizational data can create substantial business value. Specifically, the case shows how descriptive analytics help Microsoft identify inefficiency in internal collaboration process by analyzing pattern in meetings, communication flows, and work schedule. The organization was able to recover thousands of productive employees' hours. Beyond efficiency gains, the case also highlights improvement in the employee experience, very important, demonstrating that analytics drive decision can enhance both performance and well-being at work. From an academic perspective, this case serves as an educational example of internal process optimization, while simple, accessible data, since it's dealing with an organization, internal data. It illustrates how even basic analytics, when applied thoughtfully, can support better managerial decisions. As we go through this case, focus on business problem, the data use, the insight generated, and how those insights were translated into actionable organization changes. So let's see the case in detail. So to properly understand this case, we must examine the operational context and the challenges that Microsoft as an organization was facing. So at the time of the study, Microsoft operated across multiple office buildings within large campuses. So employees frequently moved between buildings to attend meetings. So they were, they were wasting so much of time for commuting from one place to another, often several times a day. This physical footprint created a complex collaboration environment. Management began to observe growing inefficiency in day-to-day operations. Employees were spending a disproportionate amount of time in meeting, and a significant proportion of this time was unproductive because of the traveling of the employees between different locations rather than actual collaborative work. So this inefficiency had a direct impact on the workforce, the efficiency of the workforce, the quality of the workforce, and effective working hours. That was something that was reducing. So employees experience increased fatigue and frustrations, and overall job satisfaction began to decline, which is again part of the motivational factors. So, organizational related aspects which are non-monetary as well are the ones that influence the organizational employees motivational level. So this context is important because it highlights that problems were not a lack of effort or capabilities, but a structural and operational issue. So employees really wanted to work hard, but they could not because the operational and the structural issues that was prevailing in Microsoft. In the next step of the case, we will see that how descriptive analytics was used to objectively measure and address this challenge. So moving further, at this stage, the clear business problem, the core business problem should be clearly defined. The issue faced by Microsoft was not a lack of employee engagement or commitment, but instead it was presence of specific friction points that hindered effective collaboration and reduced overall productivity. The first major problem was excessive time lost due to meeting related travel between different campus locations. Employees spend a significant proportion of the work by days simply moving from one meeting to another. Second, physical separation across building led to reduced team collaborations, particularly from independent teams that needed frequent interactions. So distance created coordination delays and communication gaps as well. So despite high level of employee engagement, the organization experienced in declining productivity because they were not able to give much time on work. This contradiction signaled an operational inefficiency rather than a motivational issue. This led to the key managerial question. Now, this is very important for solving any case, that you should know the core or the key problem of the case. How can Microsoft improve collaboration while simultaneously reducing wasted employee time? This is what needs to be analyzed, and the data related to the objective or the question of analysis actually leads you to find out which are the variables that you need to study. The remainder of the case demonstrate how descriptive analytics was used to answer this question. So that we'll be discussing in the next slide. So when descriptive analytics was applied using existing organizational data, the first data source was employees' calendar data. That involves analyzing the number of meetings attended by employees, as well as evaluating the meeting duration and the frequency of meeting durations. The objective here was to understand how much time was formally allocated for the meetings. The second component or the variable that needed focus on was the meeting travel times. By measuring the physical distance between meeting location and calculating this time spent moving across buildings, the organization was able to quantify time lost to internal travel. The third step was to identify patterns. Importantly, the purpose of the stage was not predictive or optimization, but simply to understand existing patterns of where and how time was being lost across the workday. By leveraging this internal data set, descriptive analytics revealed clear pattern of movement and interaction across the organization. These insights provided a factual baseline that enabled management to clearly see the scale and source of inefficiency, setting the stage for data-driven interventions. So it led to important discoveries. The first, the data showed that teams located closer together interacted more frequently throughout the week. So that's a pattern. Physical proximity clearly facilitated more regular and spontaneous collaborations. Secondly, physical proximity significantly reduced meeting travel time for all participants. When teams were co-located, employees spent less time moving between buildings and more time on productive work. Thirdly, the analysis quantified the effect. Meeting travel time was reduced by 46% when teams were co-located. This is a critical finding because it translates an operational issue into a measurable business outcome. So finally, the analysis demonstrated that workplace design directly affect collaboration efficiency. The way offices and teams are physically organized have a tangible impact on how employees communicate and collaborate. Together, these findings provided clear, evidence-based insight that management could use to redesign workspace and improve internal collaboration. So key takeaway if we see from this particular case is that a simple descriptive analytics can unlock significant operational saving. Organizations do not always need complex model to create value. So clear visibility with existing processes can itself lead to meaningful improvement. Secondly, the case highlights importance of utilizing internal data. Just the data of the travel time, the people meeting, a basic data that many organizations already possess. So it's internal data set that was underutilized. So yet they hold substantial potential for performance improvement. Third, analytics should be viewed as decision support tool, not merely as a technical exercise. Its real value lies in forming managerial decision and guiding practical actions. Finally, this case reinforces that analytics is not limited to sales or marketing function. So if you can see from Microsoft, it's not any functional area that we were talking about. It is equally powerful for internal process optimization, including workspace design, collaboration. This is very important when we talk about the production unit, the amount of idle time of the machine, the traveling between the shop floor from one stage to another. So these are all optimizing the processes that we're talking about, and operational efficiency that leads to operational efficiency. Together, these lessons illustrate how analytics can be used as a strategic tool to improve both organizational performance and employees' experience as well. Now we move on to our next case study, which is focused on personalization at scale, and it is a case examination that we're doing for the company, that is Amazon. As we all know, it is the world's largest e-commerce platform, catering all genre of customers. But how they are able to do it in different entire world, they are coming up with the services. So we all know it's the largest world e-commerce platform, uses analytics and data mining to anticipate and fulfill customer needs in real time. Unlike the previous case of Microsoft, which was more of descriptive analytics and it focused on internal process and the data that was extracted from the internal sources only. So this case of Amazon, it highlights the use of predictive and diagnostic analytics in a customer facing context. So Amazon analyzes vast volume of customer data. As I told you in the beginning of the lecture, that the moment a person enters or steps into or views a e-commerce page, data is started creating. The amount of time spent, what kind of product they have been browsing, whether they are buying it or they're keeping it in their wish list or they are putting it in their cart. So based on the purchase history, browsing behavior, search pattern, rating, reviews, To understand preferences and predict future needs. This is the huge data that is collected from any e-commerce website. And it is very important through these data that you understand your customer. And that is why the e-commerce platforms actually customize for you. So when you are re-entering into the e-commerce website, they welcome you by saying that we missed you. You're ordering a certain kind of size of shoes, and if it is not that shoes that you've been buying for yourself, it would remind you it's not for you, I guess. They also give you recommendation in that people who have been buying this kind of product, they also purchase similar kind of another product. Maybe it's a complementary product or an accessory that can be within apparel purchase. So to understand preference and predict future needs of the customer, personalization strategy of e-commerce is the core. So product recommendation, personalized homepage, targeted emails, dynamic pricing, these are all driven by data-driven model designed to enhance customer experience while increasing sales and retention. From a managerial perspective, this case demonstrates how analytics can be embedded directly into business strategy and operations at scale. As we go through the case, focus on data used, the analytical techniques applied, and how personalization creates value for both the customer and the organization. So let's see now. So the core challenge that was faced by Amazon in delivering personalized at scale. First, Amazon operates with a massive global customer base, making it extremely difficult to identify and anticipate the unique needs and preferences of individual users. Manual or intuition-based approaches are simply not feasible at this scale. Second, the organization needs to boost sales by providing relevant product suggestions rather than generic product listing. So personalization, recommendations increase customer engagement. That's very important, and conversion rate has to increase, and that results into overall satisfaction. Third, Amazon competes in a highly dynamic market, which maintains a competitive edge requires real-time adjustment to customer recommendation, pricing, and product visibility. Together, these challenges define the central problem of the case: how to understand individual customer needs and deliver personalized experience across millions of daily active shoppers on Amazon. The next part of this case, with next slide, we would see how analytics and data mining were used to address this challenge systematically. So Amazon is using advanced data mining. We can see that Amazon is into technical aspects as well. It gives so many web services, provides so many web services as well. So they have this robust system in which they actually know how to analyze the customers and understand the customer so well. So they use data mining, advanced data mining techniques to segment customer in a meaningful way. The first aspect is behavioral segmentation. Instead of relying on basic demographic variable, Amazon analyzes customer previous purchase history and browsing patterns. This allows the company to understand intent, preferences, and interest at a much more granular level. In addition, high intent search queries are identified to capture customers who are close to making a purchase in a specific product category. The second aspect involved data mining application. So Amazon works with vast transaction data set and applies data mining technique to extract meaningful insights from the data. These insights directly power the company's recommendation engines, which generates personalized product feeds for individual user. The mode of payment, how quick you are buying it, are you keeping it when the prices are slashed? These are few of the examples that can be studied. Overall, this approach enables Amazon to move from broad customer group to highly targeted and dynamic customer segment, which forms the foundation of a large-scale personalization strategy. So one of the most striking findings in the overall 35% of Amazon total sales are directly attributed to analytical driven product suggestions. This clearly shows that personalized recommendations are not a supporting feature but a core revenue driver. Beyond sales, personalization significantly enhances the customer experience. By offering more relevant recommendation and helping customer discover new product, Amazon reduces search efforts and increase customer satisfaction. In addition, personalized suggestions create strong opportunities for cross-selling and upselling throughout the customer journey. Related and complementary product recommendation increases the basket size of the customer, and it actually leads to an impulse buying and overall transaction value that the customer is doing in one go. Taken together, these outcomes demonstrate that personalized recommendation deliver value on multiple dimensions. These dimensions can be revenue growth, customer experience, and long-term customer engagement, making analytics a central pillar for Amazon competitive strategy. So the first step, what Amazon actually does for its analytics is market surveillance. Amazon continuously monitors competitors' pricing as well as broader market trends. This ensures the pricing decisions are always informed by current competitive condition. Secondly, in demand analysis, Amazon analyzes internal data such as inventory level, sales velocity, real-time customer demand signals. This helps the organization understand how sensitive demand is to price changes at any given moment. The third step involves algorithmic adjustments. That's very, very important. Machine learning models are deployed to recalculate optimized price points by balancing the demand, competition, and inventory constraints. This model operates continuously and adapts a new data, and it changes as the new data arrives. And the final step is execution. Updated prices and immediately applied across millions of product listing allows Amazon to respond almost instantly to change in market condition. Together, this closed loop process demonstrates how predictive and prescriptive analytics work in real time to support pricing decision and enables Amazon to remain competitive while maximizing revenue and operational efficiencies. So if we summarize this case, that shows that analytics enable businesses to deliver customized experience to millions of users simultaneously. Analytics acts as a bridge between massive volume of data and individualized customer value. Secondly, personalized directly drives higher customer engagement and significant revenue growth. By making interaction more relevant, organization can strengthen customer relationship while improving business performances. So that's an outcome actually if we upscale ourselves to be more offering more personalized services and products. Data-driven pricing strategy ensure market relevance and optimized profit margin. Real-time analytics allow firms to respond dynamically to demand and competition rather than relying on static pricing model. So overall, the Amazon case demonstrates how analytics, when embedded into core business process, become a powerful strategic capability supporting personalized scalability and sustained competitive advantage. Now we come to our third case, and this case study is of Barclays Banking. So we focus on the application of analytics over here is in banking and financial service sector. This case basically how Barclays actually leverages predictive analytics to manage two critical challenges in modern banking. We all know credit risk and financial fraud. So banks operate in an environment characterized by high transaction volumes, strict regulation requirement, and significant financial risk. So traditional rule-based systems are no longer sufficient to detect complex fraud patterns or accurately assess customer credit worthiness. So in this context, predictive analytics enables banks like Barclays, as we will be discussing in this case, to identify and analyze the historical and real-time data for some kind of risk patterns and anticipate potential harmful events before they occur. As we go through this case, focus on how data is transformed into risk scores, how predictive models support lending and fraud detection decisions, and how analytics helps balance profitability with risk control in modern banking operations. So this case outlines the core security challenges faced by modern banks. Financial institute, as we all are aware, that financial institutes operate under constant pressure from credit defaults and increasingly sophisticated fraud attempts. As transaction volumes grow and banking became more digital, this risk has also become very complex and hard to manage. One major challenge is the need for price risk profiling. So bank must accurately assess the credit worthiness of the individual and businesses in order to minimize defaults and protect overall bank liquidity. At the same time, banks face persistent threats of financial fraud, identity theft across multiple transaction channels, including online banking, card payment, and mobile platforms. These risks actually create serious credit risk concern when granting loans, as well as operational and reputational risk if fraud activities goes undeducted. So the services would be at stake of any bank. This context explains why traditional rule-based systems are no longer sufficient, and the bank increasingly have to rely on predictive analytics to strengthen security and risk. So Barclay actually applies this predictive analytics. So the first component in financial data is the financial data analysis. Barclay conducts an in-depth review of an applicant's financial history that includes past repayment behavior, transaction records, and spending patterns. This historical data helps identify patterns associated with higher or lower credit risk. The second component involves external market factors. In addition to organization level data, Barclay monitors broader economic indicators such as interest rate, employment trends, and market volatility. These factors actually influences the borrower's future ability to repay. By combining internal financial data with external market signals, predictive models are generated so that more accurate risk profiling can be done. So this allows the bank to make informed lending decision, price credit appropriately, and ultimately reduce the loan defaults. Overall, this process illustrates how predictive analytics transform data into proactive risk management. Moving further, we see one of the major aspect is in banking is the real-time AI fraud detection. So Barclay uses AI and machine learning to detect and respond to fraud in real time. And how do they do it? So first, the very first step is pattern recognition. So the system continuously analyzes transaction behavior to identify unusual patterns that deviate from customer normal activity, such as abnormal transaction amounts, location, or frequencies of transactions. The second step involves machine learning, that is self-learning algorithm that adapts over time by learning from new fraud cases, enabling the system to detect emerging fraud tactics that traditional rule-based system may miss. The third step is shift action. Once suspicious activity is identified, the system can immediately block transactions, trigger alert, and notify security teams. Often within seconds, thereby minimizing financial losses. The final step is AI oversight. Fraud detection models operate continuously across global banking network, monitoring structural threats and ensuring ongoing protection at scale. Together, these illustrates how predictive analytics and AI enable proactive real-time fraud prevention in modern banking. So now let's see how analytics helps transforming traditional banking security into proactive system. So as we have discussed, Barclay predictive analytics directly contribute to reduction in loan defaults by effectively filtering out high-risk applicant before credit is extended by the bank. So Antix helps improve product offering. By accurately matching bank's product to customer risk profile, the bank can offer appropriate credit limit, interest rates, and financial services, thereby balancing profitability with risk control. In addition, Antix also plays a critical role in prevention of brand trust. So by detecting and preventing major financial breaches and fraud incidents, the bank actually protects both customer assets and its institutional goodwill and reputation. So overall, if you see, this case demonstrates how data-driven decision making enables banks to move from reactive security measures to anticipatory risk management, safeguarding the financial assets while supporting a sustainable growth to the customer. If we conclude the Barclays case, it is first that the advanced analytical significantly enhances risk management, extending well beyond what is possible through human judgment alone. So human judgment can be not accurate enough if we talk about, but with predictive modeling and AI, this can be more appropriate. Analytics also play a crucial role in safeguarding organizational asset and customer capital by preventing fraud, identifying theft, and other forms of criminal activity. Third, analytical support smarter, safer, and more profitable lending decisions. So by improving credit risk assessment, bank can reduce defaults while continuing to serve credit-worthy customer effectively. So overall, the case highlights how data-driven decision-making can become essential safeguard for modern financial institutions, enabling them to manage risk proactively while sustaining the trust and the profitability of the bank. Now we move on to the another case that which focus on dynamic pricing in the sharing economy. I hope all of you are aware of the brand Airbnb. So this case actually examines how Airbnb uses analytics to balance global supply and demand between host and guests. Unlike traditional hotels with fixed pricing structures, Airbnb operates in a highly dynamic environment. Prices must adapt to multiple factors like seasonality, location, local events, demand fluctuation, host preferences. So Analytics helps a central role in this process by analyzing historical looking data, real-time demand signals, and market conditions. Airbnb provides pricing recommendation that helps hosts remain competitive while maximizing occupancy and revenue. So in real time, actually it updates the availability, the pricing, more demand, prices will go high, and all these are related to it. As we will be going through this case, focus on how predictive and prescriptive analytics are used to guide pricing decisions and how data-driven pricing creates value for both host and guest in the global digital marketplace. So the core pricing challenge faced by Airbnb, the first issue is the difficulty hosts face is manually setting up the prices that accurately reflects constantly changing demand. Demand for accommodation can fluctuate daily, making static prices ineffective. So second, host must balance income maximize with guest affordability. Prices that are too high may reduce booking, while prices that are too low can lead to lost revenue and undervaluation of the property. So they might feel that a low priced property is something that is not worth it, or maybe there's some problem with the property, or might the services are not so good, that's why the property is quoting a lower price. So third, pricing decision must respond quickly to local events, holidays, sudden spike in booking activity. For example, if you see sudden forecast for snowfall in the hills in India during the winter season, so the flow of tourists actually starts rising, so the demand surges. So these short-term demand surges are difficult for individual hosts to anticipate consistently. Together, these factors create a supply-demand gap. The central question of this case is how Antix can help Airbnb recommend optimal price that adapts to real-time market condition while benefiting both host and guest. So let's see the case in more detail. Uh, Airbnb uses Antix to recommend the optimal price for each listing each night. So the first set of input related to market variables is Airbnb analyzes seasonal trends, peak booking periods, local events, and demand cycle. At the same time, it monitors local competition and available inventory to understand supply condition in their location where they are operating. The second set of input focus on user behavior analysis, similar to as Amazon does. Historical booking patterns and search intents are tracked by understanding how guests respond to different price levels. Conversion rates at various price points are then used to estimate the likelihood of the booking. By combining market variables with user behavior data, Airbnb pricing model can recommend prices that adapt to changing conditions in real time. This Antix-driven approach helps hosts remain competitive while maximizing their occupancy and revenue. Now, how does Airbnb now implements pricing decisions in real time? So the process that they actually take up is that they start with data ingestion. Airbnb continuously gathers live market signals, including search traffic, booking activity, and competitor pricing in each location. Next, it predicts with predictive modeling, which they are using the data. Anticial model, it calculates the probability of booking at different price tiers. This allows the system to estimate how demand will respond to price changes. The third step is immediate update. Once optimal prices are identified, room rates across the platform are refreshed almost instantly, ensuring listing remain aligned with current market condition. And the final step is a feedback loop. Airbnb monitors the outcome of each price change, such as booking, occupancy, and revenue, and feeds this information back into the model to continuously refine future pricing decisions. Together, this closed loop processes illustrates how predictive and prescriptive analytics operate in real time to support dynamic pricing at scale. So we see that dynamic pricing creates value for both host and the platform on Airbnb. So first, dynamic pricing helps maintain listing attractiveness during low demand periods. By preventing overpricing when demand is weak, listing remains competitive and continues to attract bookings. So second, during periods of high demand, such as holidays or major events, dynamic pricing ensures that hosts maximize their potential income. Price adjust upward in line with market condition allows the host to capture higher value from increased demand. So the Antix driven approach actually provides speed and agility that manual pricing simply cannot match. So automated price updates allow Airbnb to respond instantly to market changes, giving the platform a clear competitive edge. Overall, dynamic pricing align the interest of the host, the guest, and the platform also. So it demonstrates how prescriptive analytics can optimize outcome for all stakeholders. So if we summarize the case of Airbnb, so with a broader perspective on agile data-driven decision making, so this case is a clear demonstration of that real-time analytics enables agile and responsive business decisions. In fast-moving digital market, the ability to sense and respond quickly to change is a critical source of competitive advantage. Real-time analytics also helps organizations to maintain a competitive edge in rapid shifting global market. So through continuous adapting price and offering, the firms remain aligned with customer demand and market conditions. So analytics automates complex decision logic, freeing human partners such as host or manager to focus on higher value activities rather than the routine adjustments which are part of the service. So overall, the Airbnb case, it reinforces the idea that real-time analytics is not just an operational tool, but a foundation for market leadership in dynamic industries. So now we move on to very important part of this chapter. We have discussed some part of the theoretical aspect of business analytics. What are the four types of business analytics? We have also had a view on four cases where diagnostic, prescriptive, predictive, and descriptive analysis were used, like in Microsoft, Amazon, Barclay, banking, and Airbnb. Now we move on to the next topic, that is mastering the art of business cases. So far as I have told you, we have examined several real world case studies and seen how analytics is applied in practice. Now this particular section of the lecture, it brings structure to what that learning is, presenting a step-by-step analytical approach that helps transform complex business challenges into actionable data-driven solution. So the central objective here is to bridge the gap between raw information and strategic decision making. So we would be discussing on the steps to how we solve a business case through business analytics. In many business situations, data is available in abundance, but value is created only when the data is analyzed systematically and linked to managerial decision. So you will learn a proven analytical framework that guides you from problem identification, understanding of the data, thorough analysis, interpretation, to clear and defensible recommendation. So the framework is particularly useful for students like you because it can apply consistently across different industry, some case types, and all of these aspects. So let's begin. So the roadmap to strategic insight, structural approach you should follow when analyzing a business case. So the very first step is to identify the problem, which is very and the most critical stage. The objective is to clearly articulate the core business issue, not just the symptoms. So the well-defined problem sets the direction for the entire analysis. The second step is to collect relevant data. At this stage, the focus is on identifying and gathering only the data that is directly related to the problem. More data is not always better. It should be relevant data, updated data, which is the key. The third step is to apply analytics methods, depending on the nature of the problem. This may involve our four types or the four pillars of business analytics, which are diagnostic, descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. The goal here is to use appropriate analytical technique to generate insights from the data. The fourth step is to interpret results. That's very important because you've already collected the data, you've done the analysis, now you need to interpret the results. Analytical output must be translated into meaningful business insights. This required judgment, contextual understanding, domain knowledge, and ability to explain what the result implies for decision making with a evidence-based solution. Final step is recommendation. A strong case analysis always concludes with clear, practical, data supported recommendation that addresses the original business problem. This roadmap provides a disciplined way to move from data to decision and should guide your approach to all case analysis. Now let's see all these steps one by one in detail. So the first step is clear problem definition, which is very critical in business case analysis. A clear identification of a problem will always give you the exact objective why you're doing the analysis, whether it is just describing the data, or you're trying to figure out cause relationship, or you want to predict the future. And when you identify the objectives, or if you define the problem clearly, you're also very clear on what kind of variables you need to work on. So the first step is to identify the central issue. This means clearly determining the scope and impact of the problem on the operation. A useful question to ask over here is, how does this issue affect the entire company rather than just one department or process? The second step is to perform root cause analysis. That is, instead of focusing on visible symptoms, the objective is to investigate the underlying cause of the problem, why it has happened. And at this stage, it is important to distinguish between internal failures such as process inefficiency and environmental factors such as market or regulatory changes, government policies, competitors move, customers' preferences change. So these are few for external factors. Final step is to articulate the goal. A well-defined problem must be paired with a clearly stated outcome. This involves specifying what success should like in measurable terms. For example, aiming to increase client onboarding by 25%, or reducing the processing time by defined margin. By following these steps, organizations avoid wasted efforts, irrelevant analysis, and misguided solutions. Clear problem definitions ensures that analytics is focused efficiently, effectively, and aligned with strategic objectives. Second, how strategic data collection directly improves the accuracy and usefulness of business analytics. If you start from the left, we can see direct interaction method. This includes survey, polls, which are useful for gathering broad audience feedback, as well as interviews and focus group that provide deeper qualitative insights. This method helps us understand what people say and how they perceive a problem. In the center, if you can see, we have behavioral tracking. This involves transactional data that captures actual purchasing pattern, and online tracking mechanism such as pixels that records user engagement. Behavioral data show what people actually do, which often differs from what they report. Both types of data play complementary roles. Direct interaction method explains motivation and perception, while behavioral tracking provides objective real-time evidence of actions. When combined thoughtfully, these data sources reduce bias, improve analytical precisions, and lead to more reliable insight. Strategic data collection ensures that analytics is grounded in reality and capable of supporting confidence when data-driven decision is making. So the source of data, the validity of the data, the reliability of the data is very, very important. If you talk about in terms of customer behavior, their qualitative and quantitative data both is very essential. Now, if we see this particular slide, it shows a broader context of why business analytics is becoming so critical today. Because the generation of data. If you see in 2020, the world generated, and it's the importance of data that this slide is telling you, that the world generated approximately 64.2 zettabytes of data. This includes data from transactions, social media, sensors, mobile devices, ERP systems. Even at that time, organizations were already struggling to store, process, and extract value from the volume of information. Looking ahead, global data volume is projected to reach 181 zettabyte by 2025. In simple terms, if we say, this represents nearly a threefold increase in just 5 years. The key issue is not data availability. Data is abundant, but our ability to analyze the data efficiently is the key. The growth trajectory highlights a fundamental challenge as data grows exponentially. Traditional decision-making approach becomes inadequate. So as the data increasing, we are actually in the requirement of a very robust system of data analysis. And integrating AI, machine learning into data analytics has actually made it more easier. So this explosion of data explains why structured analytics framework, robust data management, analytical thinking are no longer optional. So they are essential for converting massive data volumes into actionable strategic insights. So that's the importance of data, and that is why strategically how data has to be taken care of is something that we have discussed in the previous slide. Now with the help of the four pillars of data business analytics, we actually now with the help of data we try to divide the entire data and the stages of analysis into descriptive statistics that layer focus on summarizing history data. So it answers what happened, as we all have had a lot of talk on this in the previous slides. So summary of statistics helps manager understand past performance, identify patterns. So second layer is the diagnostic analysis. Once you have collected the data, then you have cleaned the data, you have tested the reliability of the data, you go ahead with the four types of analysis. That is, first you describe the data, then you diagnose it, why the things happen. Since you have already figured out the variables, now you're trying to examine the relationship within the data to uncover the root causes, such as identifying which factor lead to decline of sales or increase in customer churn. Then you predict. Using statistical models, machine learning techniques, this particular layer addresses the question what might happen next. So predictive analytics helps organization anticipate future outcomes such as demand forecast or risk probabilities. Finally, we have the prescriptive analytics. This layer answers what should we do. So it gives these four layers. Actually, when you transform the raw data and you come up with all these four layers of analysis, you actually get to have insight, foresight, and ultimately effective managerial action. So next step is interpretation, finding the so what. The stage of analysis is where numbers are converted into managerial meanings. You've analyzed, you've come up with some threshold values with predictive, forecasting, maybe wherever applicable analysis. So interpretation answers the critical questions. What does this mean for the business? The first step is to identify the root cause. You have identified. Rather than stopping at observed trend or correlation, we must examine the underlying drivers that produce the result. This helps ensure the decision address causes, not symptoms. Next, we evaluate solution impact, where alternative course of actions are compared using the evidence, or kind of like feasibility testing you do. Which particular course of action would be the most, most feasible and worthiness for working on it. So what improves performance, what may worsen it, understand the under that condition such solutions would work the best. Then you assess the financial return on investment, very important. So manager need to quantify outcome in business terms such as expected revenue growth, cost saving, and efficiency gains. The step connects analytics directly to organizational value. Finally, we developed a risk mitigation. Every decision carries uncertainty, so it is essential to identify potential downsides and design safeguards that reduce operational, financial, or strategic risk. Effective interpretations ensure that analytics leads to informed, defensible, and action-oriented decisions. So how analytics translate directly into measurable operational impact? As we have seen in the Microsoft case, the organization analyzed metadata from employee calendars rather than content itself. So this includes information on meeting frequency, duration, location. We've already discussed this case in the previous slides. movement between buildings, ensuring privacy while still generating powerful insights. So we examine how the pattern worked at Microsoft, and then we came with a effective solution. Effective working hours was designed. So that is what we mean to say when we have collected the raw data, we've identified the variables, now we've done the analysis with the evidence base. Now we are going to take few proper decisions. So formulating the SMART recommendation, that is the critical stage of business case, converting insights into clear, actionable recommendations. The first component is the justification phase. In this stage, we explain why the chosen course of action is superior to the available alternatives. That's the feasibility testing that you would be doing. So this involves clearly outlining the expected benefits, such as you compare it on some benchmarks, such as cost, saving, or performance improvement. So alongside the estimated implementation cost, decision maker must see a rational, evidence-based trade-off. Next recommendation should follow the SMART framework. Objectives must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. So that is very important. So they should also be objective must be specific and measurable, so progress can be tracked. They should also be achievable and relevant, ensuring alignment with the organization goal, and recommendation must be time bound to support by clear milestones and key performance indicators, that is the KPIs. The final element is stakeholder engagement. Even the best analytical solution fails without buying it. Analysts must communicate not only the value of the recommendation but also the cost of inaction. This helps stakeholders understand the risk of maintaining the status quo. Together, these elements ensure that recommendations are practical, persuasive, and ready for implementation. So as we conclude, this is important to emphasize that case analysis is not merely about, solving a problem. It is about creating a defensible data-backed foundation for managerial decisions making. Rigorous analysis helps organization move beyond intuition, anecdote towards structural reasoning grounded to evidence. When done correctly, it clarifies the real problem, isolates the root causes, and evaluates solution based on measurable impacts. The strongest recommendations are not the most complex, but the most feasible one, well justified and strategically aligned. They directly address the root cause of the challenge while balancing risk, cost, and return. As future managers and analysts, dear students, your role is to translate data into insights and insights into action. When analysis is disciplined and purposeful, it becomes a powerful driver for sustainable organizational value. So if we talk about the future of analytics and tie together the insights from all the case studies discussed in this chapter, across organizations such as Amazon, Airbnb, and Barclays, analytics clearly emerge as a key differentiator for modern enterprise success. These cases demonstrate that analytics is no longer limited to reporting or historical analysis. It now drives personalized risk management, pricing, and real-time decision making at scale. Most importantly, analytics connects data to strategy. Organizations that effectively leverage analytics are better equipped to respond in uncertainty. They adopt the market changes and create sustainable competitive advantage. So as future managers, these cases should inspire you to think critically about how data-driven strategies can be applied to your own professional context. To conclude this chapter on business case studies in analytics, let us reflect on broader learning. That is, throughout this chapter, we have seen how analytics move from theory to practice, solving the real business problem across diverse industries, we had hospitality, we had banking, we had e-commerce, we had, one big company like Microsoft that we have discussed. So whether it is improving internal collaboration, personalized experiences of the customer, user experiences, managing financial risk, or implementing dynamic pricing, and it consistently actually enables better, faster, and more objective decisions. So I hope the key takeaway is that successful analytics is not about sophisticated tool alone, statistical tool alone. It is about asking the right business questions, using appropriate data, and translating insights into actionable decisions. So as you move forward in your academic and professional journey, I encourage you to view analytics not merely as a technical skill, but as a strategic mindset, one that emphasize evidence-based reasoning, continuous learning, and adaptability. So we come to the conclusion of chapter 8. Thank you for your attention, and I can encourage you to revisit these cases as practical reference points for applying analytics in real-world business situations. Thank you.